This is Josiah Plays Tyranny. Alright, we're here. We've just arrived at the disfavored camp. And during the 3 hours of travel time on my way here, it makes sense that my character would have thought over her life and had a long talk with Verse. So we're going to do those things now upon arrival. I also wanted to look at... We're going to look at this biography in a second. I want to look at the encyclopedia and see if... Here's lore. There's nothing that says religion. I mean, there's a whole lot of stuff in here that I don't know what it is. And like I said, I'm going to wait for these things to come up in-game. I was just wondering if there was a general, like, religion entry, but there's not. Alright, it's legit reading time. Legit reading time. Tutorials. So many tutorials. Biography. Here we go. I gotta read this in my character's voice. This is gonna be like Masquerada again. Public speaking is nothing new to me, though I must admit the stakes are now significantly higher than my usual pleasantries. One could argue that service to the adjudicator is the most ambitious use of speechcraft available on Tyranny. If I can use rhetoric and persuasion to convince Tunon that I'm an asset to the court, I might live to retirement if I'm lucky. Between the rigorous training, the broad education, the constant oversight by the adjudicator, my colleagues, and sensing Bledan Mark lurking in the corner all the while. Bledan Mark is, I think, the Archon of Shadows. He's like the assassin, the greatest assassin of the world or something. Let's look at this guy. Bledan Mark is Kairos' knife in the shadows, the unseen drop of poison that enforces the Overlord's will. He reports to Tunon the Adjudicator, serving in his capacity as the final word to those who hold Kairos' law in contempt. Few know the origin of the Archon of Shadows, or how Kairos maintains a hold on him. Those who anger the Archon never live long past sunset. Alright, these are the other Archons that we know of in the game. Siren, Cairn, Tunon, Voices, and Graven. Alright, let's go back to my biography. Bledan Mark lurking in the corner all the while. The life of a Fatebinder is harder life than most would suspect. I think Tunon does that to his students intentionally, keep us anxious, guessing, and competitive. Even if we are some of the most respected folk in the Empire, Tunon likes to keep us humble. Like is too strong a word for whatever pale imitation of emotion lurks behind his inscrutable mask. I've gotten this far with Tunon's confidence. Let's see how much farther I can go. Tunon has awarded me an unheard of honor, the opportunity to accompany Kairos' forces on the campaign south. He says that I'm to represent Kairos' law in the savage frontier and pave the way for his civilizing hand. I'll have some military authority at my disposal, but Graven Ash and the Voices of Nerat will be the architects of this conquest. Mostly I'll be there to observe the wartime operations and settle any disagreements as they arise. I know that the Southerners will only accept Kairos' peace kicking and screaming, so here's to hoping I can make the transition a smooth one for us all. In 428 TR, we softened up the Bastard tier in advance of the army's main thrust. Chorus conscription set the expectation for the locals: submission or death. Setting out ahead of the army, I arrived in the Bastard City and kept a low profile. The help of a well-connected local gave me exactly what I needed to prepare the city's downfall. With the army on the horizon, I helped the bastard city fall from the inside. I convinced the locals to take up arms in the name of Kairos, forming a Scarlet Chorus gang out of the downtrodden. Separating from the chain of command and worming my way behind enemy lines tested me raw, but I lived to see the bastard city fall. This was an important victory, hopefully the first of many. Now that Tunon has established his court in the vacant throne room and summoned the other Fatebinders, he's sending me to accompany the army while he tidies up his new city. I've chosen to follow the army to the realm of Apex. The Southerners don't take up a lot of space here, but what land they possess is commanded by rivers and mountains. Choke points, in other words. Sounds like a worthy challenge for any military. Even though the Tearsmen are afraid of magic, a school of water mages fought for the realm of Apex in 429 TR. I ensured they wouldn't be a problem any longer. Their teachings soon lost to history. Between major battles, I found a less celebrated form of success in teamwork. When my forces apprehended an enemy captain, I gave the order to send him back to his people with a message. It was the only way to convince these Southerners that cooperation was in their best interest. We did more than just fighting in Apex. When the defenders sued for peace, I negotiated a bloodless victory that won our forces Edgering Pass, an important staging ground in the mountains. Those Apex defenders are a feisty, passionate bunch, more combative than I might have guessed. We really had to break their spirits before the offer of surrender made any practical sense to them. Stubborn, but admirable enough for Southerners, I'm being deployed farther afield, as it seems my work is never done. A small detachment of soldiers is making for the Vellum Citadel, a sprawling repository of lore that is so forbidden it would leave Tunon gasping on the floor if he read as much as a shopping list dredged from the stacks. That's pretty fucking forbidden right there. Yeah, well, it's also got elements of the Roman Empire, it seems like, in it as well. I think it's supposed to be basically a mashup of every empire from the Bronze Age or the early Iron Age kind of mashed into one. So anyway, he'd be gasping on the floor if he read a shopping list. I can't help but find my curiosity piqued at what, or who, I might find there. The sages are said to be more intimidating than they appear, but I suspect that they'll see the wisdom of surrender. In 430 TR, I joined a military detachment to capture the knowledge and resources of the Vellum Citadel. When Legion soldiers killed sages bound to the Scarlet Chorus, I enslaved them as pages to the Archon of Song. Sometimes I wondered if the war might go better with fewer Archons involved. When Siren caused fights to break out among the Scarlet Chorus gangs, I defended the rule of Archons and the right of challenge as essential to the war effort. After the campaign grew divisive and the armies fractured, Kairos granted me the honor of proclaiming the Edict of Fire on the Vellum Citadel. I warned the sages in advance, giving them a final opportunity to surrender or prepare before laying waste to their library fortress. See, my idea, like, role-playing wise, as far as my character, like I said earlier, I think she's reluctant about all this and wants to get out of Kairos' service. But I like the idea that she wrote this journal, and you see the kind of language she's using. She's writing about everything as though she was perfectly happy about it. And, you know, like, she totally agrees with Kairos and the Empire, and I like to think she's writing it this way on purpose, just in case somebody reads her journal. They will think she's loyal and they won't think there's any chance of her being a traitor or whatever. I warned the sages in advance, giving them a final opportunity to surrender or prepare before laying waste to their library fortress. The siege we brought against these meddlesome spellcasters took more out of our small detachment than we had to offer. Tunon may never forgive the setback in our campaign, much less the expenditure of effort it took to force the last of the sages into submission. The Vellum Citadel is now known as the Burning Library. The forbidden lore of the School of Ink and Quill now fuels a victory pyre. Though the sages never formally surrendered, they have been shattered and made irrelevant, Some small solace there. I turn from this troubling chapter of the campaign and orient toward the bastard city, where my duties in Tunan's court await. I often find my mind wandering from the conquest and indeed my own responsibilities. Proclaiming an edict was truly the pinnacle of my achievement during this extended campaign, and it troubles me that I must return to my regular duties after indulging in such power. Okay, so ordinarily a Fatebinder doesn't have as much authority as we've been granted during this war. This is like a temporary assignment of being extra powerful. It's like Dances with Mages. Well, I mean, she's relatively loyal-ish, but I mean, just... she doesn't like all the killing that is involved with the Overlord's peace and the armies. She would like to see things handled more peacefully. So, the parts of her duties that involve death, she feels reluctant about, but she keeps that buried deep and pretends like she's going along with it perfectly, you know, perfectly happily. And then she just kind of uses her power. She figures she can just kind of use her power when possible to do something to save lives or to bring peace or whatever. And that's kind of what I've been doing. Alright, back to Tunan's court. Back to Tunan's court. I often find my mind wandering from the conquest, and indeed my own responsibilities. Proclaiming an edict was truly the pinnacle of my achievement during this extended campaign, and it troubles me that I must return to my regular duties after indulging in such power. For a moment I was the voice and will of the Overlord manifested in this lawless frontier. I felt the power of absolute authority pour from my lips, and judged the masses on a scale that not even Tunan may fully appreciate. I know that I have been instrumental in steering the events of this war. I wonder if it is, perhaps, too soon to let myself think about the spoils, the accolades, and the welcome return home. Such things will have to wait a little longer. No, there is no official name for the Empire that's been given. I return to the bastard city to take my place in Tunan's court. The Overlord's conquest is finally over, but much work remains to bring Kairos' peace to the rabble of the Tears. The other Fatebinders assigned me light duty so that I might convalesce from my ordeals. Channeling the Overlord's power while proclaiming an edict has sapped much of my strength. I am fortunate that I survived the experience. So apparently there's a cost to the person proclaiming the edict as well. Which is great, because I'm about to have to proclaim another one. Thanks for that. You have gained 10 wounds. Rumors reach the court of unrest in the Tears. I am not privy to my Lord Tunan's counsel, but I can tell that he is troubled by the increasing tension between the disfavored and the Scarlet Chorus armies. Eventually he must decide which Archon will become governor of the Tears. I fear that his methodical deliberations will only inflame Kairos' soldiers against each other. Ah, so this is what it's all about. Deciding who's going to become governor of the Tears. I have a feeling this is the central thing of the game right here. Do you back Ash for governor of the Tears? Do you back Voices for governor of the Tears? Do you back yourself for governor of the Tears? Or do you try to get like one of the locals appointed or something? I feel like that's going to be very important, that governor of the Tears bit. How do they choose who becomes Fatebinders? They just pick people by their any Archon apparently. No, wait, not any Archon. It's all Tunan. The Fatebinders are all Tunan's people. He just picks people, whoever he thinks They said he picks people that are considered to have exceptional minds. In my background, when I made my character, I was a diplomat, and it said basically that I argued very convincingly, and basically that I was very eloquent, and that just impressed Tunon very much, so he made me a Fatebinder. But they also said that once they pick you to be a Fatebinder, you can't say no. You either become a Fatebinder or you die. I fear that his methodical deliberations will only inflame Kairos' soldiers against each other. It is proving harder to quell the spirits of these tearsmen than we initially thought. There is a streak of animal stubbornness inherent in their nature that makes them resist the demands of Kairos' law. Rebellion. The garrisons at Vendrian's Well were slaughtered in the night in a treacherous attack. A group of tearsmen violated their oaths of surrender and now claim independence from Kairos' rule. The Archons clamor for vengeance, each demanding the right to crush this rebellion. My Lord Tunon receives word from the Overlord. Or does he? We speculated earlier that maybe there is no Overlord. Maybe it's just Tunon claiming to hear the will of Kairos. Both armies will be sent to eliminate the Oathbreakers. I almost feel guilty. I almost feel pity for these tearsmen. They have no notion of the doom that will fall upon them. It has been several spans since the armies arrived at Vendrian's Well, and still no word of victory. The Archons bicker like dogs over a bone, and my Lord Tunon grows weary of the constant stream of missives from each army. I heard Fatebinders, Kallio, and Nunnaval speaking. They believe that Tunon will apply to Kairos for the authority to bring the Archons to heel. It will be amusing to hear Ash and Narat howl as they face the Adjudicator's judgment. Word has come. Once again I am chosen to bear Kairos' edict. Few Fatebinders have survived proclaiming a single edict, let alone two, and none have proclaimed a second edict so soon after their first, so in other words, this is bad. I set out for Vendrian's Well in the morning. I can only hope I have the strength for what is to come. So this was a pretty cool biography. This wasn't just a recap of the things you picked in Conquest. This was like a whole story of that goes before the game with a lot of extra little details and stuff in it that you would not have known just from reading your background in the character creation and just from doing the Conquest. So that's pretty cool. So now we really know what the hell we're doing and who our character is and what the hell we're doing here. I don't know about... what it says about Archons again. Archon is the title given to people who wield immense power. It is also a title in Kairos' hierarchy, the rank immediately and distantly below the Overlord. I think the biography will get updated throughout the game, just like in Pillars of Eternity. I'm sure it will. In modern times, they wouldn't have bothered to make a whole tab for the biography if it was just a one-shot thing that you read. You know what I'm saying? It's going to get updated. Alright, anyway, Archons. Archons. In modern times, every living Archon either swears fealty to Kairos or lives the nasty, brutish, and short life of a hunted animal. So the Archons are the Archons before they even join Kairos. They're just made to serve Kairos, but they're not made Archons by Kairos. While all Archons possess magical powers, there is no other common thread between these women and men. An Archon might be made of fire, capable of conjuring storms, or able to heal with a touch. The only defining trait of an Archon is that this magic power originates from within. It is unclear how Archons come into their powers, but it is generally understood that most grow into or develop magical power throughout their lives, with only a few notable exceptions, such as Siren Archon of Song, having shown powers seemingly from birth. Mages view Archons as the pioneers of magic, as any and all spells that mere mages, that is, non-Archons, can cast, all work by tapping into this. Oh, this is the explanation of how magic works. Somebody asked earlier, how does magic work in this world, and I didn't know. Well, now we know. So normal mages cast all their spells by tapping into the power of an Archon that has come before, an act often referred to assigning a spell or invoking a sigil. So this kind of reminds me of Dark Sun again. Seraphine, the Archon of making people wait. For reals, though. For reals, people will be made to wait. This reminds me of Dark Sun, when you had the Templars who were granted their spells, who gained their spells tapped off the power of the Sorcerer Kings. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but... So Archons actually have their own magic. Everybody else just casts, like mimic magic of the Archons or whatever. For example, the Earthshaker Guild developed their earth-controlling spells from Cairn, Archon of Stone, while many of the Blood Chanter spells of Frenzy and Fear are adapted from the power of Siren, Archon of Song. As there have been many Archons to wield similar powers, at least a half-dozen Archons of Fire are known through history, it is possible that two mages might invoke different Archons to accomplish similar effects. Yeah, Dark Sun, the D&D setting, yes. It's my favorite D&D setting, by far. I love Dark Sun. So, yeah, interesting. They invoke different Archons to get their spells. Alright, what else do we want to read about right now? Most of these things I'm going to save until it's relevant to the actual... until it comes up in the text of the game. But... okay, we already read about edicts. Oh yeah, I want to read about Fate Binders here again. Yeah, evidence suggests that Archons live for a long time. Because this guy is from quote-unquote ages past. And the voices of Nerat... well, it doesn't say anything about how long he's been alive. But there's been lots of stuff that have said that a lot of the Archons are pretty fucking old. Aaron, we read about him. He's the Archon of Stone. Oh, Interloper, the smaller of Taratus' two moons. Cool. The unwashed, undisciplined, unskilled masses of the Scarlet Chorus are known as the Horde. The only advantage these soldiers possess is their overwhelming numbers. When the Scarlet Chorus conquers a town or village, a ritual known as the Culling is held. Every able-bodied man, woman, and sometimes child is forced to fight their families and neighbors to the death. Only those brutal enough to kill their loved ones will survive to join the Horde, where they're given a chance to earn a name, a weapon, and some semblance of a future. Well, that's pretty brutal. I don't think the Archon has to be alive for them to use the magic. Because it said they use the magic of Archon that has come before. Magic sigils. Okay, let's read this then. Sigil is the catch-all term for a symbol, rune, or glyph used to channel magic. Most often, a sigil is used to refer to the name of an Archon in this context. Spellcasting works on the principle that Archons create new magical phenomena, and mages then imitate these powers. It is the Archon's sigil that a mage must invoke to channel that Archon's power. Proper spellcasting uses not only the core sigil, for example, a ball of fire would need to start with the sigil of the Archon of Fire, but sigils for shape, a bolt sigil in the fireball example, and for various modifications. Skilled mages have been known to use sigils that prolong, extend, echo, or intensify their spells. And when we looked at our core sigils here, each one has a little story about it. Like the sigil of fire, this was first used by the Sun Queen, Archon of Fire, used centuries ago. So she's not still around, presumably, because it's kind of talking about her in the... Well, maybe she is still around. Atrophy was discovered centuries ago in the East by a cult of mages. This variation on the sigil of the Archon of Ruin, whoever that is or was. So each one has their own sort of origin. The Northern Empire. Okay, we're not going to read about the Northern Empire at the moment. What we are going to read about is Fatebinders, because it looked like there was some text in here that I hadn't read. A Fatebinder is a servant of Tunon the Adjudicator, Archon of Justice. The Court of Fatebinders are the judges and executioners of Kairos law. Trained in legal lore as well as martial and magical prowess, Fatebinders have the task of enforcing Kairos' peace among the factions and Archons of the Overlord's empire. So enforcing even among the Archons. While the Overlord's rule is absolute, the Empire is too large for Kairos to directly control everyone. Instead, Kairos grants authority over different parts of the Empire to the Archons. Some Archons are governors of provinces or military districts, while others control important groups like armies, mage guilds, or specialized agents like the Fatebinders. Each Archon is granted limited autonomy over their area of control. As long as they serve Kairos' goals and do not break any of the Overlord's laws, Kairos permits the Archons to rule their armies and provinces in a manner of their choosing. Because of this, the Archons and the groups they control will often clash with one another. The Fatebinders were created by Tunon to solve these problems. A Fatebinder's duty is to resolve disputes that arise between the different armies and mage guilds, and sometimes between the Archons themselves. So when there's a dispute between multiple Archons or factions, I do have the authority to resolve that shit. In accordance with whatever Kairos' law is. So that means in some instances I have authority over even Archons, in other instances I do not. And there's probably a lot of gray area there in practice. Tuna must really have some really badass power if he can lord over other Archons like that. I guess so. We don't know what Tunon's power. Let's see what it says about Tunon. Tunon the Adjudicator is the Archon of Justice, ruler of the conquered realms, and arbiter of disputes. Oldest of the Archons sent to conquer the Tiers, Tunon speaks with Kairos' authority. His true appearance remains hidden behind an iron mask, the face of judgment. Tunon is an impartial, sober creature, wholly obsessed with justice and order. Though assumed to be a powerful combatant, Tunon rarely strays from his throne room, entrusting his court of Fatebinders to act as his eyes and ears, as well as judges, juries, and executioners. So this doesn't tell us what his power is. Maybe they don't even know what his power is. Maybe they just know that he's been picked by Kairos to be in charge, and they're afraid of his authority. But he probably does have some badass power as well. He probably does. Yeah, whether the Fatebinder gets set on fire by an Archon tired of this. But see, I get the impression that nobody really wants to fuck with a Fatebinder too much. Like, if you just killed a Fatebinder, and that Fatebinder wasn't, like, seriously rebelling or breaking the law, I think then you'd have to answer to Tunon, and he would be pissed. And probably punish you in some way. Alright, so the next thing I want to do, so anyway, that was my biography, and as we traveled across the land for 3 hours, I thought back on my biography and maybe talked about it with Verse a little bit, revealed some stuff. And then we also had all this travel time to have our conversation. So now I'm going to speak with Verse Now that it feels like a more appropriate time to do so. I wonder if the art voices can consume other Archons. That's a good question. And whether he has or not already. That is a good question. I would imagine that Kairos has forbidden the Archons to kill each other, though. All right, let's talk to Verse. Couldn't help but notice how you were eyeballing the disfavored symbol littered about camp. It's hardly a symbol, just a scroll. That's true, but it used to be the pride of Graven Ash's Legion before Kairos made them deface it. Oh good, I wanted to hear this story. I want to know what happened with this, because this is something I don't know, and I was curious about. What happened? I'm going to converse with a capital V. Nice. Word has it that Ash has been under more scrutiny than the other Archons, seeing as he took a stand against Kairos in the past. We better read about this. Before he bent the knee to Kairos, Graven Ash rallied his legions against the Overlord's authority. His prowess on the battlefield ingratiated him to the Archons, who welcomed him into their ranks in exchange for his obedience. Alright, so he was a general that was resisting Kairos until, you know, he got his ass beat, and then he said, okay, fuck it, I'll be an Archon. Even though he bent the knee in the end, that doesn't place him above suspicion. Kairos and the other Archons keep him on a tight leash. Ash's troops impressed the growing empire, but Kairos made them sacrifice everything they were up. Sacrifice everything they were up. Kairos made them sacrifice everything they were, up to the point Ash surrendered. They've been disfavored ever since, and fighting to earn back their honor. Okay, so they were the cool-ass Legion with their own symbol before they joined Kairos. But then when they were defeated, Kairos pretty much put them in their fucking place, and that's why they're the disfavored. And they're fighting to earn back their honor. Okay, cool. So no wonder they take this shit so seriously. They're trying to restore their previous status. Yeah, she had other things to say back when I first met her. I'm sure she'll have those things to say still after we go through this little conversation. My loyalty with her is up to 3, which is nice. I guess that's why you don't cross the Overlord. Kairos holds a grudge with a mean, jealous streak. Actually, I have other questions. Go on, then. Verse nods.
What do you need?
She's voiced sometimes. Yeah, these are all the things I could talk to her about before. Tell me something about yourself.
If you insist. I'm a Scarlet Fury. That should raise some flags for you. It means that I'm good at killing, and more importantly, that I enjoy it.
She enjoys it. She's kind of a psychopath. I like her, though.
What I won't enjoy are the pleasures of funerary rites packed with weeping mourners. Someday I'll fall in battle, and then they'll roll me into a mass grave or heap me atop a shit-stained wagon. One more anonymous, knife-riddled piece of meat.
I have a feeling she's gonna whoop my ass if I duel her. I mean, I'm gonna try it nonetheless, but... And then again, I do have some good spells now. Eat atop a shit-stained wagon. That's not really a good future. Knife-riddled piece of meat. And she's not real concerned about this.
Until then, I plan to take whatever I can from life and have a little fun along the way.
Tell me about your life before the chorus. Life? What life? As far as I'm concerned, I didn't exist before the chorus. There was some girl in a farm wearing my face and talking with my voice, but she wasn't me. Sometimes she would sneak out at night, take a scythe, and have some fun with the livestock. Oh no, Nox! Oh no! Versus a cow killer! Or a cow torturer. Maybe she only means the pigs and chickens and goats and stuff. Maybe she doesn't mean the cows. They might not even have cows in this world, actually. The developers said that there are no horses in this world. Like, they literally don't exist. So if horses don't exist, who knows what other animals might not exist. They might not even have cows. Murderer. Preclude your companions from getting all uppity? Yeah. Have some fun with the livestock. Our shared interests began and ended there. So this is a textbook sociopath. A textbook psychopath, even. I mean, that's how they get started, a lot of them, is by torturing animals and stuff when they're young. So, she's not exactly just chaotic good. She's a legit evil character, probably. And she said she enjoys killing as well, so that's pretty evil. When the Scarlet Chorus swept through my village on their long trek from the bastard city, that is when I finally woke up. I buried my old life, took red vengeance on anyone who'd wronged me, and found the freedom I could only dream was out there. But what's of your parents? My mother ran a successful farm, and I worked it for a number of years before I found the chorus. She was a hard, bitter woman, acted like the world owed her something. She never talked about my father, though I figured out a thing or two about him later on. He was a merchant from the Northern Empire who took a liking to her, and she him. He stayed around only long enough to get what he wanted. What did he want? That booty? You may want to be careful getting her around livestock. Yeah. But never mind him. My mother never had what you would call taste, so he couldn't have been terribly influential to me if he did stick around. How did you get conscripted? How did I think you have the wrong idea about me. The chorus didn't take me as a sobbing maid. I strode into their camp and enlisted. Someone tossed me a dented blade. I lived through initiation, spent a week butchering my neighbors, and moved on with my new kin. Wow. So she is hardcore. Verse is a straight-up edgelord. She is edgelord as fuck. He turned their land into what is now known as the Stake Lands. Oh, that's horrible, Nox. I mean, that's horrible, Saito. You're gonna make Nox cry. I didn't waste time with goodbyes. My mother had long since died, and the rest of my family were louses. The girl I used to be, even she knew that she was worth more than all of them combined. She has a strong sense of self-worth. Do you ever wish you could do things over and end up somewhere other than Kairos' army? See, I think my character's asking that because she does wish that. That's as naive a question as I've ever heard. Kairos is everywhere. If you aren't in the Overlord's army, you're being trampled by it. Of course, I could have labored on the family farm into my maturing years, married some dolt, and littered him a nursery of squealing piglets. Alright, nice. I like her. Having my body torn to pieces by smaller versions of me sounds like fun. Then one day, when I decided enough was enough, I'd slit my husband's throat over breakfast and run off to join the chorus anyway. My way saved a lot of time. Verse smooths back the feathers in her hair and shakes her head with a smile. Alright, so she's edgelord. So edgelord. Okay, so I think my character's true feelings are number 2. But she is a natural manipulator and has an understanding of people, and she tells people what they want to hear. That's what she is. She's a diplomat. She's a manipulator. So she knows that what Verse wants to hear is this. So she's gonna kind of play along and sort of, you know, blow some smoke up her skirt or whatever. You're a killer. Better to stick with the chorus. Plus, she wants to make it seem like she's a badass Fatebinder, you know, killing fools for Kairos and stuff. She's got her rep to think about. At least you understand. The chorus praises and rewards the thing inside me that I would suppress in civilized company. Life is too short to repress every desire, right? Especially if I have anything to say about it. Well, basically, Sato, the way it works with fear is, anytime you disagree with the NPC, anytime you say something that is against their values or that they disagree with, they start to fear you. And I think they fear you because you're a fucking Fatebinder and you have all this power. And so the more they think you're not like them, or the more they think your values conflict with theirs, they're more afraid that there's going to be a conflict with you, or that maybe, you know, ultimately you're going to come down on them or something. That's how I read it. That's how I read it. Because there's only loyalty and fear. Loyalty is anytime you do something that aligns with their values. Fear is anytime you do something that is contrary to their values. And I think that's why. Because they have reason to fear you. As a Fatebinder, you could just order them executed anytime you want. What is the significance of your feathers? Oh, because I have loyalty too, she'll talk to me about it. Cool. We are getting awfully chummy, so I guess you deserve a story. My mother kept a messenger bird, Witherbeak. He was an angry old bastard, spoiled from living the high life, squawked in my window every single night. Pecked my fingers while I fed him only the fattest, juiciest mice. When I left the farm to join the Scarlet Chorus, I wrung that ungrateful little fucker like a dish rack. I love Verse. Oh, I love Verse. I already like Verse more than every companion in Pillars of Eternity. I wrung that ungrateful little fucker like a dish rag. That's amazing. Plucked his feathers and gave his carcass to the mice. It felt like justice. She slides a crimson feather from her hair and spins it in her fingers. Oh, that's beautiful. I also like how the feathers catch the breeze. Helps me keep my balance, especially when I'm moving fast. She slips the feather among the others and smooths it back. Oh, that's fucking cool. Verse is badass. Enough questions about your past. That suits me just fine. I'm not much for comparing family histories if I can avoid it. Look, I don't take great joy in brutally killing birds in real life. I don't even enjoy the idea per se of the killing of the bird. I just like the way she phrased it. Wrung that little fucker like a dish rag. It's very evocative is all I'm saying. Tell me about your time with the Scarlet Chorus.
The Scarlet Chorus is mostly for madmen and peasants with rusty daggers, but it's also a little niche of freedom that I never had. Once I survived training and met my Scarlet Fury sisters, I saw a different side of the Howling Mob.
Yeah, she's a Scarlet Fury, so she's one of the elite warriors. She's one of the few in the Scarlet Chorus that actually know how to fight. Tell me about your training.
For new recruits shoved to the front lines, training means surviving the first battle. Anything beyond that is for the fighters who show potential, whether as blade dancers or arcane madmen.
Arcane Madman. I like the idea that that's like an actual title in their ranks. What do you do in the army? I'm an arcane madman.
There's nothing in the world like getting put through the paces as a Scarlet Fury. Every day is a test of your commitment and passion. Failure means death. The first few weeks were the hardest, but also the most rewarding. I earned my name, picked up some quality weapons, and met my sisters.
You earned your name? If you think a simple farmer from the Tiers would name her child Verse, I suggest you visit my old village. Most of them were walking around with surnames like Beryl or Fish. Not the most creative bunch. She smirks and shakes her head. The chorus takes your name away. Whoever you were before, you aren't that person anymore. Then you can earn back a name through great deeds, usually murderous ones. That's why you see choirmen walking around with names like Stinkmouse or Face First. There's probably a good reason for it. The voices of Nerat gave me this name, and when the Scarlet Chorus runs howling into battle, he doesn't hear war. He hears a symphony. And when I fight with blade or bow, he told me that my music stands out louder than anyone else's, and contains too many parts to be easily defined. Wow, that's actually a pretty big compliment from the voices of Nerat. So she's kind of a big deal. When you least suspect it, the Archon of Secrets can be downright charming. So in her village, a child in their mother's womb could literally be a fish in a barrel? Yes, could be. By asking her what her real name is, she doesn't like that. I'm gonna ask her anyway. What's your real name? That question isn't worthy of either of us, but I'll entertain it out of pity. You already know me by my real name. It's Verse. Are you looking for whatever arbitrary collection of letters and sounds my mother thought was appropriate when she didn't even know me? Then you're out of luck. I buried that name long ago. Long by my standards, anyway. You know, there's this whole thing with former slaves about casting off their slave name and taking a new name as free people. Ironically, her thing is the opposite. She cast off her free name and gained a slave name. And she's happy about it, apparently. Tell me about the Scarlet Furies.
The elite fighters of the Scarlet Chorus. Your typical Horde recruit fights with a rusty spoon and a chip on his shoulder, but the Scarlet Furies are, well, different. We focus our madness. We coordinate, we kill, we dance. It's like art. Imagine a sculpture that twisted in weird, beautiful angles, and then gutted you too fast for you to realize what was happening.
That sounds cool. Do you even hear yourself when you talk? Again, I'm gonna tell her what she wants to hear. It sounds wonderful.
It is, as I remind myself all the time. The most important day of my life was when the voices of Nerat recognized my potential and sent me to Scarlet Fury training.
She's really thrilled about chopping people up. Tell me about your weapon skills. When I was just a kid, it didn't take me long to realize I was a natural. I could pick up a rusty kitchen knife and skewer a rat from across the room. Oh, well, that sounds like a useful skill. The Scarlet Chorus gave me opportunities to further educate myself. My sisters were always a bit surprised by how quickly I took to different fighting styles. She frowns for a moment and then shakes off whatever she wanted to say. Back to my questions about the Scarlet Chorus.
What do you need to know?
Before, you hesitated when you brought up your fighting styles. Why? Oh, because I got the loyalty. I'm about to hit tier 4 even. Noticed that, did you? It's a matter that I'm not used to discussing, mostly because I don't know how. I mentioned before that I'm good at picking up different weapons and fighting techniques. The truth is, I'm better than good. I could flay a man so cleanly that I'd leave a single strip of skin behind. That's pretty good. I can't even do that shit with an orange, let alone a person. He wouldn't even need to be tied down. That was one of the first things I discovered about myself after joining the Scarlet Chorus. The voices of Nerat recognized it in me as well, which is why he singled me out for Scarlet Fury training. Have you tried that flaying trick before? Let's just say that when we ran out of canvas for pitching tents, the Fifth Eye handed me a knife and pointing me to the prison pens. She winks. Wow. I wonder if that's literally true, because damn. Because damn, son. Hey, prisoners, I'm about to make tents out of you. That's hardcore. That must have been a tense situation. That's a very vicious intent that she had there. My sisters were the masters of their fighting forms, but since they died, my style has changed. Almost like I can kill as they did. I could pick up a bow, a lance, anything really. I could tear someone to pieces with a weapon that I only watched my sisters use. I don't know what it could mean, and that worries me. She's worried because she's a badass? Over their contents? You bet that's not what those guys were thinking when she said she was going to make them pop tents. Oh, God. That is not what they were expecting. Who are your sisters? Who were they would be more appropriate. Three Whispers, Red Geyser, and Seeking Sheath. Best fighters I ever met. There wasn't a foe we couldn't take down together. Our fighting styles complemented perfectly, so we divided up the killing work like bards sharing a song. At least we used to. She presents a solemn salute. She pours out some of her 40. Yeah, that definitely got their attention. Nice, Nox. Tell me about Three Whispers. She was as calm as the surface of a pond, and light on her feet. More than one foe tripped and fell on their own blade due to Whisper's crafty footwork. Verse lets her gaze slip away from you as a fleeting moment of sorrow steals her attention, so she does have some feelings. These three, by the way, these are the names of her three stances that she can switch between. Three Whispers, Red Geyser, and Seeking Sheath are her stances. They all give her different bonuses. Tell me about Red Geyser. A one-woman siege breaker. She would launch herself at her foes like a battering ram. Not even a disfavored phalanx could have withstood that dumb, suicidal wench. Kairos' eyes, but she was something to behold. Verse slams her fist into her palm. Tell me about Seeking Sheath. That girl could pass a spear through 12 rings from the far side of a battlefield. Kairos help any foes who approached her marching single file. She made a game of spitting as many soldiers as possible in the same javelin. Oh, that sounds pretty skillful. In before those are her multiple personalities? That would be cool, actually. That would be hella cool. What happened to them? We were scouting around Vendrian's Well during the siege, back when we only suspected the guard of organizing in secret. My sisters and I came upon a group of them. Or Kairos knows, maybe they found us. No one said anything. We drew iron and bronze. Hey, Geister. Is it Geister? Geester? Giester? How you doing? That is a cool theory. That was when everything went wrong. I was supposed to take point and occupy the guard with a dance of blade work, something disorienting while my sisters picked their marks. I hesitated. I lost my nerve. Instead of rushing the Oathbreakers, I froze with my weapon drawn. My sisters fought on without me, but they were off balance, like whatever I had was catching. Uh-oh, what happened to them? They died. I lived. My sisters were relying on me to lead the dance, and I failed them. So she wants me to say your actions were inexcusable, but I'm not going to in this case. It's understandable. Caution stayed your hand. She doesn't like that. She does not like that. I've got tier 1 fear with her now. Some people hear it, some people fear it. Some people just won't go near it. Loyalty 3, fear 1, just won't go near 1. Caution? Save your caution for the disfavored. If we showed caution, could we have taken the bastard city or the gates of judgment? Could we have conquered the tears with anything less than our blood boiling over with rage, the song of battle ripping from our lungs? Hesitation is a rot. It's unbecoming of any chorus member, and unheard of in a Scarlet Fury. I would cut it from my body and cauterize the wound if only I knew its source. She grimaces once more and turns inward, contemplating. Any thoughts on the topic, or are we just here to open old wounds? Any idea why you lost your nerve in battle? Wish I had an explanation. For the first time, I lost the dance. The song of murder grew silent. Instead, there was only rigid, organized control. Dude, I hate it when I lose the song of murder. I mean, I rely upon the song of murder in my day-to-day life, and if that shit went silent, man, I would just be paralyzed. Where did the song of murder go? You know how you get like, oh, I've got this song stuck in my head. For me, it's like, oh, I don't have the song of murder stuck in my head. This is terrible. I don't know what happens if you get full loyalty and full fear. It's probably very confusing for the NPC. But it makes sense. It shouldn't just be one or the other. Because a lot of times, when you think about it, a lot of people in your life, you feel different ways about them that might be contradictory, but you still feel them. So I like the fact that it's two separate tracks. Do they become like Gargamel's cat? Yes, I'm sure that's what happens. Gargamel, man, that's a name I haven't heard in a long, long time. That's some Smurfy shit right there. I had more questions about your sisters. Go ahead. I miss those girls, but I'm not so bad off that I can't talk about them. Actually, back to my questions about the Scarlet Chorus.
What do you need to know?
Who are the Scarlet Chorus leaders? Well, the Voices of Narad is the spider at the center of the web. He asks like the army belongs to him, and he only lends it to Kairos because it suits his purposes, both of which are true. The rest are all offshoots of the Voices, like the Fifth Eye. Once you get down to the rank and file, the Scarlet Chorus organize around a motley bunch of gang bosses who call the shots. What do you want to know? Well, I want to know lots of things, but I'm going to wait to find out the rest of these things until our next episode. If you're watching the stream, don't worry, I'm not done playing. I am, in fact, going to play for another 17 and a half hours, because I'm doing a 24-hour stream right now, but I do need to end this episode for the YouTube crowd. And by crowd, I mean like the 5 people that watch this on YouTube. So that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you for watching. This has been Josiah Plays Tyranny.